Let's see. You see the new stuff announced today? We'll talk about that too, though. The
I just don't have a fully baked take on it. That's all. Just kind of like thinking on it right now. It's like a thinking on take, right? Think.
you can't even
Um,
start the report yet. You got a lot to do later.
well, sometimes, yeah, I know. I was just probably not gonna sleep tonight, man. That's kind of like what it is.
Is that a thing? Is that a normal occurrence for you?
It feels like this week because I was off Monday, Tuesday, and so it just kind of threw my whole week into a loop. Where I was like not doing an insane amount. So now I'm just playing catch up to my week, which means I'll be spending a lot of time writing and that sort of stuff. So it just kind of is what it is. But it all ties together because I think like it all boils down to community. So we'll use that as a thing in cockbook because I do the 99-1 rule is kind of the whole point of talking about Crimson Desert and Black Desert Online and Pearl
Yeah.
Abyss.
Community is my jam here. So I'm just sending this out to the Discord, and then we can start things as normally. Let's see.
But did you feel that the dice event was worthwhile to you and your business and all that?
Yes,
Making connect.
definitely. I'm already having a few calls that are trending in the right direction.
Good.
And I'm meeting with some more people that work at the party next week. So I think there's a lot of direction now, and I think it's all positive stuff. Yeah, I do, and I'd love to do GDC. It's just I should have started planning for it 2 months ago, right? Like Dice, I was
Yeah.
able to pull off in 2 weeks because I booked a hotel room and that was it, right? This is a little more like, I got to find locations and that and topics and speakers, and it's just so big. You have so many people there. It's just kind of like, how do you wrangle it all together?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I don't have any like massive pushback on that.
Sorry, I hear you.
Oh, you're good, dude. You're good.
I heard. Did you like the Live Ops Summit?
Yeah, no, I think they do a really good job. I would make comment like I would say better than other events that are B2B based. I think they do a good job. They get different kinds of speakers there. Like I have nothing but kind things to say about the event itself. And it's generated, all the things. It's good. It's good. I appreciate it. It's different.
Yeah, and I mean it's Austin. I love Austin.
I do too. Maybe I should go. Maybe I should pull the trigger on an Austin thing. It's in April,
Well,
right?
it's mid or late April, yeah.
It's
And
after South by Southwest. That's all I know. It's like they don't do South by. They don't compete with that. They go after South by.
I think we can do some cool stuff there. I'm already like planning with a couple sponsors on things that they want to do. So I told them I'd start looking into that this week, right? Whether it be like renting out a barbecue pit, doing game stuff, doing stuff out there. Like,
I mean, that's the big thing. You probably want to go take a bunch of people there out to do barbecue or like whatever. Like go Stubbs. If you want to wait in a line, go to Franklin's. That's the best barbecue ever. I'm like a meat guy, and it's like I've never had brisket as good as Franklin's. Not even close.
I had a barbecue, and it was the most amazing place in the world. It was in Austin too, but just the meat down there is unreal. All right, should we kick things
Stubbs
off?
is burnt. I'm not a big fan of Stubbs. I'm like, it's fine.
And the truth is, it's all good. They just got better beef down there, man. You can't compete with that. YouTube. All right. I think we're live here. We are live. Welcome to Player Driven Live. We are here, Colin and I. It has been too many weeks, Colin, since we've been back. Last week we were at Dice, hanging out, meeting people, throwing parties. How was your Dice? How have you been since we've been back?
Well, I saw you at Dice. There's actual photograph in my last newsletter where we actually met in person. So, there's proof on the internet that we have met in person. So that's cool. But Dice is good, and it was my first Dice. My read of it was it's like GD. It's not quite GDC, but it's in the same vein where you have a lot of people, in a variety of importance all crammed into one area, except it's not across the Soma of San Francisco. It's like literally in one hotel at the Aria. So like that was convenient, right? You'd spend a lot of time at a Starbucks, and you're not like marching down up and down Market Street or all the other streets in San Francisco. So that's like a nice plus, but it's definitely different. And yeah, it was a really good event. I have no notes and all that, so I think it was a great like bunch of people come from all walks of the gaming industry, man. How about yourself? How did you think about it?
I loved it. You know, all the conferences I've been to, GDCs, the Gamescoms of the world, if you don't have meetings scheduled, you really don't have time to meet with people unless you randomly bump into each other at the bar. The beauty of being at the casino, the Aria, is that, like you said, you know, you just kind of walk around and you bump into people and they have time to meet. It seems like a lot less stuffier than other conferences. Maybe, I mean, it's crowded still because it's a casino, and it's weird because there's like 12 conferences going on at once, and you're trying to figure out what's that tag. Is it the right one? Is it not the right one? But overall, I thought it was a great conference, and I loved the event. We had a little shindig with some friends coming up, some just hanging out, some cool vibes, and you know, we were aiming for 20 people. We had about 45 people come through, so that was a major success, and we appreciate everyone that ended up coming out. I think it was a super fun time.
No, totally, man, totally. I thought it was a great time, and it was great meeting you, and it was a great event that you hosted. So, awesome job, and those who watch or listen to this, Player Driven had a really cool event in Dice. It was very, very last minute ish, but it didn't feel last minute. I think you had a good showing considering you were planning this as the event was like basically starting. So, like, good turnout, dude.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone that came and was a part of it. I think it was a team effort of everyone who was there, and it was awesome to see the community I've been working on build out, come together, and just do something. And it's the power of people, man. So we always talk about networking and staying in touch with people. And I don't know how often you do this, Colin, but like, it took me a long time to find out the power of LinkedIn, not just for talking and reaching out and kind of becoming kind of a voice, but just to connect with people. You know, the first job I ever I reached out to a couple of people, be like, "Hey, man, how have you been?" And people have been so excited to reconnect again, and just
Oh my
your
god.
network effect goes really far.
Totally, totally. Yeah, and like, I had so many really good conversations at Dice, and like one of like I think like one of the threads that constantly I kept coming back to was the like I was having with people. So I was talking to people like gaming companies, developers, publishers, people that like people that work around those people, like vendors and agencies. And I think like one of the continual like themes I kept hearing was the challenge of discovery in gaming right now. And like some people are proposing solutions, some people have takes on why discovery is so challenging. Like, but like I kept coming back to kind of the topic of discovery and like and one of the more profound conversations I had. So I last week I told everyone I wasn't gonna write a newsletter, and then I came back and I was like, I have to write this newsletter for like two reasons. In part, like all the conversations at Dice, I wanted to get it down by the fresh in my mind, and my takes were warm, as it were. And the other one was I kind of bubbled to like some of the I would say the last gasp of conversations around High Guard when I was like, I think people are thinking about this all wrong. So like that conversation was specifically it's something that we measure the effects of what I'm about to say. So what we measure is how basically attention is how you measure attention on your product game, whatever, right? That's what we do at my game, right? Is we just measure that piece of it. But the other side of that I think it's understated, underreported, under talked about is that you really need a like to fight discovery in a world where you're in the war ground, or like the currency you're playing in is the attention economy, because time is zero sum. There's only so many hours in a day for a person to kind of split across all their entertainment options, be it the games, movies, TVs, music, sleep, a bunch of other stuff that Matt Ball recently published. I won't go into that yet, but like a whole lot of other things you could be doing other than just playing games. So like you're fighting this like war of attention, which is by proxy a war of discovery. How do you get your product and service noticed to see an infinite amount of other options? And to that end, like the piece that like I think it's understated is the content side. Like you need an army of content. Like that's just fact, right? Like, and it kind of boils down to are you familiar with the 99-1 rule, Greg?
It
I,
sounds familiar. 99 something
yeah. So
something.
I forget who put this theory out there, but the idea of the theory is 90% of those who engage on the internet are lurkers, meaning they don't comment, they don't like, they don't do anything, they just consume content. So they are the silent majority, as we always call them at my game. Like they are just there consuming stuff, but they never actually engage. 9% of those people are likers, sharers, hearters, whatever, right? So they engage in the most basic manner. They go, yep, here's a heart, here's a like, here's a share to amplify that content, right? So that's like the 9%. Then the 1% is the actual people making content, right? Who is making content for the thing, right? And so coming back from Dice and having these like great conversations, I think people underestimate how much that 1% is so important, because if you don't have the 1% there building narrative, building like content for your game before it's even out, like not when it's out, not when Twitch streamers are playing it, not when YouTubers are making like deep dive VODs on it or whatever. No, it's before the game is out. You have to have just a insane amount of content out there so that you have attention, because you don't know what one individual piece of content will break through, but you can bet if you have like a million pieces of content, something is more likely to break through. So it's really just a numbers game of like, you just need content, and you need people passionate about creating content around the thing you're trying to put out there, which kind of led me into talking about Crimson Desert, which is you know, something that's coming out very soon. Pearl Abyss. um I think it'll be a hit. But thoughts on that, just that theory first before I dive into like why that matters for Pearl Abyss, or sorry, for Pearl Abyss the company, and then Crimson Desert the game.
So if you look at player driven, you go into like the workshops. The first one we built was called community driven, and the reason we built that is for this exact reason: is that when you look at or the crowd of people you're trying to work with on the internet, you have lurkers, you have likers, you have engagers, you have content creators, you have every different type of person and role that exists in this. And it's fascinating when you see how these roles all work, right? I've broken this down into literally these lessons, and it's a paid course, right? So it's a paid course because there's a lot of content behind it. But how do you identify who these people are? How do you silly things like in Discord, people have little logos or slogans or job titles by their name. To some person, that might be like, I don't care if I have a creator badge or something on my Discord or this, but some people love that and thrive by that. And it's fascinating. And as I started learning about these roles, I have like 5 friends that often just share content with me on social medias. I am not a sharer. I create stuff, but I am not a sharer. So sometimes they share with me and I feel bad. I don't reply. And it's like, do you guys get offended if I don't reply to this? And they're like, no. And that is another thing. It's like, these sharers are your voice. If you're a studio building a brand and you're building this game that's awesome, if I have people that are willing to go out there and share it, that's my like front line. And that's so cool that you have people that are willing to do it. And you always take a look at it. It's like a like is the cheapest of all the options. A like is great. Thank you for liking my content, but no one's seeing an extra thing because you like. If enough people like within the first X amount of time, and depending on the algorithm and the network, you'll help get access to more people there. But you have to understand it's not always about more content either, right? It's about the right content, understanding who your audience is. If you're creating a Vampire Survivors cozy game, make sure you know who your audience is, who's making a Vampires Survivors cozy game, right? Like they may not live in the United States. They might live in the middle of Eastern Europe, where you need to start understanding. And then you need to figure out where that audience is and how you engage with them. I agree with everything you said. The discoverability is the hardest part of being noticed right now. And you do need to create content that resonates with the right people. And it's about, and I feel it's like in hindsight, everyone knows this, but as I talk through it, I learned that not everyone knows about this. Like it's so obvious that you can
Oh,
engage these people with these rules. And when you or roles, and when they get those roles, like in the Discord, you're in our Discord, we have Justin in there. He's pasting content in there. He's active, and that's awesome because I suck at that. And I'm trying to get better at it. But like these people are the lifeblood of the communities that you're building, and they want to be repaid in a way. It might just be a thanks. It might be a cool man. It's like a like or a thank you, right? Like I want to make sure these people get that value, but it's the right content with the right audience. You can't just throw content against and say, hey, gamers love this. Here's action footage of my Sudoku game. Like it's not going to work like that. You got to figure out that right audience for that.
yeah. So totally agree. So and so like let me kind of go. I'll maybe go a little macro first. Like I think at the heart of all of this is and not to be all philosophical, like Velociraptor. You could put that meme on me. Velociraptoring it. I'm old, so that's a funny meme to me. Is that humans want to feel connected, so we're increasingly isolated in like micro digital bubbles, and so they want a space, physical ideally, but digital works too, where they can feel connected to each other. That's just like human nature, right? So whether you kind of fill a hotel room for an after dice party because everyone just wants to hang out and talk to each other, right, Greg? It's just kind of like your recent experience, or those who congregate on Discord because they're passionate about a particular thing, whether it be a game or something else, right? But like, let's talk about the games, right? Because that's kind of what the focus is on. Like, that's you have to have that place for people to meet and to kind of engage with each other to kind of build, right? So, and I agree, it's not about volume, although I think you don't know. I don't want gaming companies to think like, oh, we have to measure twice, cut once, or measure 10 times, cut once. Like, don't let good be in the way of best or perfect, right? You have to experiment because I think the larger point, you don't know what those algos would take on. So you have to enable as much different types of content creation to happen so that something breaks you, even if you're not 100% certain what will break you. But to that end, I think where I saw a lot of dialogue, especially last week and this week, is a lot of focus on sentiment. And I think that's an important tool, but it's not the whole thing versus just the sheer amount of like discovery. So like I'll talk about like the good and then I'll go to my critique. So the good is like, you Crimson Desert is slated to be probably the third to second largest game this quarter, right, in gaming, right? So if I count Hightail, which is a really good launch for that particular game, if I count Resident Evil being the clear winner, then Crimson Desert has a shot at being at like third spot. But on its way to success. And you're like, oh, well, this game just started coming out of nowhere. And I think like when people say that to me, which I have, it's like doing disservice to those are pro base, those are community building because you got to go back. So this game was announced back in 2019, I believe. So I'm gonna shoot from the hip a little bit on the dates, but like let's say 2019ish. It was announced, and then they like launched their Discord server in the early 2020s, right? So they started to build on a very Crimson Desert community, not a Black Desert Online, the previous game in the MMO that's still ongoing for Perlbis. Not that, but a thing about this game, years before they even started doing the marketing and the major beats, right? Like they got into the muck and started building community from the ground up. And that's kind of like what you have to do. And that's like really the right way. Like start building the bridges, start leading into your existing community at Black Desert Online to kind of go to Crimson Desert. And so, like, sorry, to take a step back. For those who don't
No,
know what Crimson Desert is, it's a prequel to Black Desert Online, but Black Desert Online is an MMO, and they decided mid development to pivot away from MMO for this game and turn it into an open world action RPG, for lack of a better word, right? So that's what you're kind of seeing out there now. So it's not an MMO, but it's set in the same universe. Thus, it's going to obviously lean in that community that's very heavy in like Asia, Korea specifically, where Pearlbus is based out of, and to drive those people to play this game. But because it's not an MMO, I think it has an opportunity to like really blow up this universe because people are very interested in this like open world action RPG. It looks stunningly good, blah blah blah. But this all happens, and the attention on this has accrued to the point where it's at because they did the hard work years ago to kind of build that community, to build that relationship with the core players. And like why this matters is there are your market champions. They're creating content, they've been creating content, and now they're amplifying how much content they're making because they're excited about the new game coming out. And they've been doing this for years. Thus, they're educating the market for you, and they're your advocates because they've been there for years, or at some for some people, right? They've been just doing it for a long time. So they're your core advocates. And my critique side of this is like those who say, "Oh, well, I swear for your listeners, this is the last time I'll mention High Guard, but I saw the guy, the developer, put his heart out there on a Twitter thread or whatever, and I was read it, and I was like, I feel really bad. He lost his job. His team feels incredibly disappointed. But he comes to the conclusion that basically the mean internet is what did him in, and I'm like, no, it wasn't the mean internet. And I'm sorry. Your leadership basically failed you on this. You didn't build community, so when your games first trailer came out, you didn't have your advocates in market telling people what this is really about. You just had the initial reaction and the negativity took over. And like, I guess my point being is like, you need those positive content creators, those who are bought into your world, and you can't just hack that with like 6 months to launch. You have to be doing it years and years and years before your stuff comes out so that when that initial trailer comes out, you have a wave of, oh my gosh, this looks great, coming up against the naysayers, which are always going to be there. The internet's always been mean. I'm sorry. Like people, the internet has been an awful place. Anyone who's watched Kevin Smith movies from the 90s, and I think it was Dogma, or it was Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And there's like this whole scene where they're going into like the cow like fast food shop looking up on the internet and like forums and people are being mean to them there. That was the 90s, man. Like people were mean then, People are mean in the 2000s, people are mean in the 2010s, and people are mean now. One through line across the whole internet is that people are mean on the internet. Just this enmity just creates snarkiness and meanness and trolliness and whatever. And that's always been there. So just is what it is, right? I'm sorry the internet's mean, but it's always been mean. And anyone thought it was a utopia version of the internet, I have a bridge to nowhere to sell you, man. Like, okay. So it's always been mean. So you don't, but to get around that, to get around the mean internet, to get around the trolls, you have to start with building actual relationships with players. So going back to my argument, you need that 1%. You need that 1% bought in. You need that 1% building that content. You need that 1% building the narrative around your game, so that when you get into your actual marketing cycle, like the more traditional cycle, you look at it 6 to 12 months out from your release, you have that like tailwind behind you. So everything you do is going to be amplified, and it's much more of a positive and community driven thing, as opposed to whatever happened with High Guard happened High Guard. So that's my overarching take. Thoughts,
So,
Greg? I just ranted for
yeah,
like
a
15
ton.
minutes.
So about a year and a half ago, I did a podcast with the lead Pearl Abyss's player experience.
Oh, no way.
And before going into it, I didn't know what Black Desert Online was. I was familiar with it, but I knew nothing about it. And I saw the few previews that Crimson Desert had out at the time, so I was kind of new about it. And he started telling me about the things they've done in game. He told me experiences about literally marrying two people in game. He told me literally a clan or a member of a whatever you call it in the game, a clan, died in real life, and they wanted to throw a funeral for him, and they had to put up protections at the funeral because they were afraid that an enemy clan would come and disrupt the funeral. And the enemy clan ended up coming, but paying respect to everyone. Everyone was there, people that disliked each other, all paying respect. And hearing these stories of community are just so amazing, that a good community manager, and this dude is a great dude, but very much an introvert, very much but he was able to help facilitate and build this community. Again, the role that he played, he knew what his role was and how he can help build it. But the stories you hear of what they go through to do for these communities and why these communities pay back. Yeah, building the community should be the most important thing that you do when you build this game. There's still one thing that's much, much more important that often gets overthought when we kind of push this agenda, is your game needs to be good, right? You can put out a trash game at the end of the day, and the community can only save it as much. But when you have a good community, a community that's breathing, putting in content, building content, engaging with content, it makes your marketing team not to have to do as much. I mean, you look at games like Balatro, and they didn't do half that either. But once people found Balatro, they took it and they built the community. And there's been hardly any marketing done for Balatro, right? It's been all through the community, and it just shows you it one man built this game and was able to build this community and do with it, right? We are the makers of our own destiny. And if you can build something and you're able to figure out how to do it, and you put the right people around you, the sky is really the limit, right? You just need to build that good product and figure out who are the best people to help get me there.
I mean, I totally agree. And any community manager is probably just listens to this is clapping. And I think they're woefully underappreciated assets in these larger companies versus the media teams. I'm gonna have a really spicy take. If I were to try to launch a game right now and I was looking at my P&L and I had $30 million to spend on ads or $30 million to spend on community and growth, I would put all that money into community and growth. Or split it in a much different manner than what people are doing right now. And I think there's a way, and marketers kind of think about broadly. So I don't want to call out any specific marketer, and it might ultimately be the marketers at the top of companies that look at and say, we need to buy homepage takeovers and ad buys on IGN.com and fandom. And I'm not knocking those companies, but there's this old style way of, this is how we get impressions and this is how we get awareness and yada yada yada. And I think that's just incredibly antiquated. If you are dealing with scarce resources, which money is a scarce resource, especially in this kind of economy for games, and you're doing it despite the fact you're unwilling or have no budget or have no time to kind of invest in the community side, it's this is where all your growth is going to happen from. These people who buy into what you're doing, who are going to create so much more earned than any sort of media buy could do in isolation. That's just fact, in my opinion, right? Community, right? And I want to call it I was having a conversation at DICE with a pretty senior person, and this came up, and they told me specifically that when they push upwards a budget and they're like, yeah, we want to spend $50 million on ads, it gets rubber stamped from the sight unseen. Like, yeah, that sounds great. $50 million ad buy, let's go. You decide, you tell your media agency where to spend it, like, and tell them the direction where you want to go. Versus, I want to spend like $300,000 on this Discord technology stack that'll make community much more manageable and build on them. And they're like, well, do we really need this Discord thing? like, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a company more out there, but it's a company that definitely has an active community in all these places, and it just seems so crazy to me that that's still an ongoing conversation where they're trying to extract value out of this like minuscule relative to your media budget like thing on Discord. And that, shout out to Discord. I feel like I'm doing a commercial for y'all right now versus like just buying ads blindly across the ecosystem on like SVOD and TV and everything else, which I think is like, I personally think if you're spending $1 on TV advertising, you're lighting your money on fire. There's a waste of money. I like to see myself on the NFL games. That's entirely like, I see no value in that. 100% no value. I think there's better ways to spend that money.
Yeah, I talked to studios about doing live streams of their games with designers and building things out, and I would want to charge a little bit to the service to build it out, right? And they're like, "Oh, all our advertising funds are going to UA. We don't have money for anything else." I'm just like, how is everything going to UA and no other places you're looking? Like, you're trying to sell this service where you're trying to build a community to have people push this stuff for you, but when it's time for you to do the same thing, you're like, no way, we're just gonna buy ads. We're just gonna buy ads. It's just like, there's so many. I think you said it when we spoke 2 weeks ago, and I love the idea where, like, don't buy one of the top streamers, buy 100 of the middle grounds, and then all of a
100%.
sudden, right? Then
Yes.
you're taking over a lot of area through different voices. And I loved that when you said that. That was just like yeah, find those 100 to 1,000 streamers, right? Each one of those, if they could grab 2 or 3 people that are interested in your game, they'll tell 2 or 3 of their friends. Like, that spiderweb effect happens. And yeah, it would be great to get the Mr. Beasts of the world to play my game because everyone has eyes on it. But I'd rather have 10,000. It's a game of one gorilla versus 1,000 other things. Like, it's take the larger army.
Oh my God, I have so many thoughts on that. So first I'll say this to the shout out. So we do a lot of analysis on TikTok trends, and one of the things that I think is really fascinating when you start diving into TikTok is the mobile games that succeed most in that platform are leaning headfirst into content as UA is the best way I would frame it. So this game called Block Blast, which is like a Tetris like kind of game, right? Blocks sitting on blocks. Very benign, is one of the top, I want to say 25 to 50 games in total video volume on TikTok. And they eclipse their entire category. And then when you go on to at Magic Sensor Tower, Block Blast is also one of the #1 downloaded games. So you're like, okay, so these things are cool, and then they make no money on revenue, but they make it all on ads, and they're not tracked in Sensor Tower in these tools because you don't have no idea what the CPMs on those ads are. So they are monetizing attention, folks. They just make it in not selling you gold coins or fast passes to get out of your set timeouts. They're just letting you just suffer through an endless amount of ads, but is another way to monetize attention. So going to what they do on TikTok, they just try a lot of things. They just lean in so. They do a bunch of different kinds of content on their own and operated channel. Some of it's weird and memey. Some of it's like, here's some gameplay. Some of it is like this and that. And they're training the kind of viral community underneath them to create more content like that, thus kind of ballooning out their total videos, thus ballooning out their potential video views, thus ballooning out their attention, and then thus by proxy their downloads, right? This is what they're doing. They just won TikTok, right? And Garnita Free Fire, they actually are a lot more, not to say it, Block Blast is not tactical. Free Fire, if you want to understand why Free Fire is so big, just look at how they stand up individual owned and operated channels in specific regions where they create in-language content, in culture memes against that audience. Like Brazil has its own thing. Parts of, I think North Africa has a Free Fire channel. India, all these places have their own channel dedicated to Free Fire that is creating content for that community in that region, right? That's region specific, culturally specific, language specific, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They don't have a global thing. They do it all hyper regional, and they have over 1 trillion views on TikTok as a single game. They're not a platform like Roblox, who also has 1 trillion views. They're a game, and they just blow the doors off on attention on that platform. And they're one of the largest games for us in the world. I didn't know that was in Matt Ball's report, so he called that out. I'm like, couldn't agree more. They're massive, and nobody talks about them. And they win because they win the attention game on platforms like TikTok. That's what they do. They're not buying ads and praying. I mean, they probably buy some ads. I'm not saying they don't, but they don't buy just ads. They play the game and content. Where a lot of game companies out there just kind of treat it as like honestly a checkbox on the list of things that you should do that often gets kind of deprioritized to a bunch of other things. And I think that's a massive mistake. You need that 1% creating a bunch of content, not knowing what content's going to resonate with who, so that you have as many at bats as you have to kind of win the kind of attention war, right? To get hot, to kind of gravitate toward a successful launch or
And
maintain your leader position, right?
yeah, if you take that to that next level, right, then you enable the creator tools, the UGC content that allows people to create game things in game. And then all of a sudden you have a platform like Minecraft, like what GTA 6 will be, what Roblox is, where creators could come in, they can create a business within your game, they can sell things within your game. And that unfortunately will attract, whenever you get popular, you're going to attract bad seeds to your community. It's just inevitable. You can put tools in there to protect it. There's tools in there to protect players, but when your game starts to get big, you're going to attract attention from both sides, right? But all of a sudden, you have people creating stuff for in the game. People are never going to want to leave it. It's why those next games from How Do You Get Off of Minecraft are hard to build, because you have so many people that are rooted into this community that you built that you don't want to kick the can down the line.
Yeah. And just to shout out Crimson Desert. So I'm looking at their Discord. I'm like, it's a really tiny font for me right now, but like I'm looking at their Discord server when I put it in my newsletter, and like you can see inside the Crimson Desert server, there's multiple in language channels that they invite people to join within language characters like Korean, English, Espanol, etc., etc. So they are inviting people to go to what suits them the best. They're creating on ramps for all types of players. They understand it's a global thing. And like, again, last time, this will be the last week I talk about High Guard. You go to their Discord community, which probably doesn't even up anymore, but I have a screenshot of my newsletter, patch notes. There's nothing like that at all. It's just like, welcome this channel. Like they put no thought into how to engage people on one of the most important engagement platforms out there to kind of build the community behind you, which is Discord, frankly, in gaming, right? So it's a critique of, obviously it was not important and it was deprioritized at some point. I'm sure there were smart people there who knew to be more active on Discord, but they weren't, and ultimately they didn't control the narrative on their game, good or bad. And it all became negative and quote unquote, but ultimately they had no intention on their game to begin with. So I just think for those listening to this, those who in the community side, like you are incredibly important to the success of these games, because you're cultivating and activating those people who are going to be the one percenters and creating an army of or a sea of content that is going to help your games break through. So you are at the ground floor of that, and so you definitely are doing really good work, and your organization should pay a lot more attention to you if they're not. Not assuming they're not. I know a lot of companies, they do lean into this being a priority, so I don't want to say that as a blanket statement, but I do think it, broadly speaking, a lot more attention needs to be building on cultivating and building community, because it ultimately is the 1% that's going to create the content, right? And I'll end on this, like, not fully baked take yet, but like early take, reading the Matt Ball report, and I'm kind of like thinking about it, and I've listened to him to a couple of interviews, and one of the things that kind of just doesn't sit right with me in like his framing that TikTok, gambling sites, TV, anything else is competition to the game. Like, yes, it is competition to the game, like in terms of hours spent in the game, but so much of gaming is beyond just how many hours you spend in the actual game itself. It becomes much more broader. How many hours are you spending against that IP? And like, as I think about it. So I still don't think TikTok is a competition. If I'm a fan of Free Fire and I'm not playing Free Fire, but I'm watching Free Fire content on TikTok, that is a net win to Garena, right? That just is, right? You're building fandom. They will then likely spend more time in the game at some point, and they will likely spend more money on your brand, whether that be directly in game or elsewhere to support your brand. Or if you want to go with a more quote unquote Western-y version of this, for those listening, Nintendo. You are not spending 100 hours in Mario, and yet that little plumber is worth so much money as IP. Why? Because you're engaging with that guy everywhere. It doesn't matter that he doesn't have a game out. And when you have a game out, some of us will buy the game, others will not. Believe me, I'm not buying Mario Tennis right now because I have no interest in seeing him on a tennis court. But somebody is, right? But will I buy a next 3D platformer Mario? Sure thing. But like, it doesn't matter for Nintendo because they're capturing that attention elsewhere. I'm engaging with him. I will 100% though see that movie when it comes out in like a couple weeks in March, right, or April, when the Mario 2 movie comes out. That's a ticket already been bought by for my kids, right? So I will engage with the Mario brand in the next 2 months, even though I'm not playing a game. Thus, Nintendo is still winning the attention economy, right? That's why they have physical theme parks, because now I can engage with Mario here. So don't think about it as solely as hours spent in a game. I think that's the wrong math. It's how many collective hours are they engaging with my brand across other mediums, whether that be real world mediums, online mediums, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think people need to figure that out, man.
I think both could be true. And before I explain why, on the community stuff, I love it. And you ever watch The Critic years ago? With what's his
John
name?
Lovett?
Yeah, he has that buy my book type of thing. We have a whole community stuff up on Player Driven, right? We have practical ways to get started, worksheets, workshops. There's video, there's audio. If there's anything you ever want to start learning more about, we have a lot of content there at Player Driven, and you can check it out and build it out there. But to your latter point, right? I agree with everything you're saying. The attention economy, if I'm capturing your attention platform, the platform is fantastic, right? But that's not always good for the studio as much as you think it is, right? If you look at like the old school mentality of Microsoft, internally, the different departments needed to try and do better than one another. And if you look at a company that's transmedia, say their TV strategy is doing better than their gaming strategy, right? You're going to start to lose people from one side of it and start adding it to the other. It doesn't mean it's doing better for all sides of it, right? And I think you need to understand, it goes back to understanding who is your audience, where do they best resonate, right? Nintendo learned after years they're infiltrating all the ages of it, so they can start to put out kids movies and get in front of kids and all this stuff. But it may have not worked as well years ago, and I think you need to understand what your true strategy is, because again, yeah, for the bottom line, the CEO of Nintendo, whatever, like drawing a blank right now, right? As long as everything's doing good, great, that's for him. But if you're in charge of the video game vertical and all of a sudden gaming's sucking, but everything else is doing good, you're not going to get looked at so well.
Yeah, but then you have to hope that the leadership, I think Nintendo is a really good example here, understands the flywheel and understands that every piece of the flywheel is as important as the other piece, right? Like,
It's a
let's
good
go back
example
to
for you.
Walt. Well, no, you know what? Sure, but let's take it to Disney and like, everyone's seen the picture of Walt Disney from like 1945, 50 or whatever. He's standing in the room. He has like the OG flywheel model, which is movies lead to TV, lead to parks, and it's like this wheel, like this kind of like the OG flywheel, which is the Disney experience. Fast forward like 90 years or so, and flywheel's in full effect. And like there's times when the content of the movies matter more than the theme parks. And I think seeing who the new Disney CEO is, it's gone the other way. Now the parks matter more than the theatrical, but they both need each other. Like there's no new rides with IP people care about without there being TV and film and wherever the Disney is going to make that content. And then inversely, like if the parks are where they monetize it the best right now, awesome. But that I'm sure that seesaw will go the other way at some point, as it always does. It'll go back and forth, right? So right now it's on physical presence and but it'll eventually go back the other way. So like I think to your point, I hope the leadership at these companies understand what the actual flywheel they're operating in is, and if they devalue that flywheel, then all of it will fall apart.
Let's jump back to community. And you and I were both on the same. I think you were on the call with Justin yesterday. Maybe not, but they were talking about.
You have to fill me in.
Marathon.
I had to tell him like an hour a day before I couldn't make the call, and I felt really bad, and I was
Oh,
ready to go. But you tell me what happened on the call, Greg, and I will
well,
comment.
we were
Justin, if
talking
you're
about
there,
we were
I'm
talking a
getting
bit
my
about
spicy take.
marathon, and people
All
were
right.
very bearish. They weren't that excited about marathon, and that we talked about marathon. This goes back to community. I think Bungie saw what Battlefield was doing with their community, engaging with the community early on, being as transparent as they could. They were very not transparent in the beginning. They did right by their artist. There was an artist that sued because they weren't properly compensated for it. They did right by them. They put out the beta test that you stress, right? And not this weekend, but next weekend is going to be their server stress
Service
test.
Slam. Yeah,
Server
Service Slam.
Slam,
Yeah.
man. I am so excited. I'm going to be very disappointed when I learn it's more Tarkov, where I'm going to learn I am not good at tactical games. But I am so excited to be able to jump into this game with my friends. And when I heard that everyone's so bearish on it right now, and I get it, I understand why, but from the inside looking out, what they're doing seems right. I want to know what your take is on Marathon at the moment.
I am in between. So in that, like I think it's all on the server slam. I think the data on our end backs it up. I will say that their burnt peanut and hybrid with state of play did fine, right? It wasn't like a complete it just kind of moved the needle a little bit up and to the right. But like in terms of everything coming out this quarter, are they the leading position? I mean, currently we have WWE 2K26 being above them in terms of our attention score, our mindshare score. At this point in time, I'm not saying that 2K26 is going to sell more units in Marathon, because I also think that, but I will say this: I think the internet is very dubious of what Marathon is until they actually get their hands on the game. That's just where I think it is, right? They have to play the game, and they will reserve judgment until then. And the challenge for Marathon in that is that their server slam coincides with Resident Evil's launch, which will be the biggest game this quarter. So they are putting their big chip on the table to basically run a play test, public play test against the largest release the first half of this year. It's a gamble. One could argue the audiences of Resident Evil are different than Marathon. Yeah, to some extent. Um, the advantage is Resident Evil is a single player game, probably anywhere from 20 to 30 hours in total. So it's not like people will be lost forever on that game. It'll be 1 week and then they'll move on. So and they'll make all their money at Capcom. So they're happy. Everyone will be happy. So like the attention on it will be fleeting relative to a live service game. So yeah, but you are going against that. So that's my bearishness on Marathon. But my bullishness is like I think Bungie knows this, and so they are trying their darnest to set it up so they are activating their community at the right moment when people can actually get their hands on the game. So I hope that they don't lean on the same pitfalls of just buying the biggest content creators out there to amplify their messaging, but like hopefully lead into like the mid size of that community and like kind of go the way you mentioned at the top or mid type part of this talk as like creators and kind of execute on them so they can drive and play your game, right? So
I think
I'm
I think
like I'm warm. I'm warm on Marathon. If you had to make me guess, I'm more bullish than bear because I think Bungie makes good games ultimately. Will it be as successful as they probably hoped it would be? No, but I don't think it's going to be like this meme I'm seeing where it's like Concord, High Guard, Marathon. I'm like, no, I don't think it'll be that either. I think if you had me put a Cauchy bet on the table, I would say it would be milk toast, like lukewarm. It'd be fine. They'll say face is my guess, but it won't be like the next 10 years of Bungie's life doing marathon, right? I don't think that'll be the outcome either. Could be. I'd be surprised at that, but I don't think they're gonna fall on their face either. So I'm not as in peril as the meme would suggest.
so. From a high level, Marathon's an extraction shooter, and its main competition is going to be Arc Raiders, which is huge right now, and Tarkov, which I'd say 99% of the people that game probably don't know that game because it's a very much hardcore game, and if you're not that type
Grimy,
of gamer,
horror.
yeah. So the question comes down to what is Marathon going to be and what does success look like? Success isn't going to be the numbers you hit on Destiny because it's a different type of game and a different type of audience, right? And it's going to go back to community. Sorry, I'm going to hammer this home because when you have a community that's dedicated to a game, you can have a small community that spends a lot of money in the game and can keep the lights on for a long time. You have games like Eve Online that are still going after 20-ish years. You have many of these games that survive with these minuscule communities. It depends on how you define success, right? Because again, you get a few group of core players that don't leave after 20 years. I would call that a success.
No, I totally agree. I mean, Destiny's increasingly got smaller to go back to Bungie, and yet they still are able to kind of keep going because they have a core community there that's kind of just engaged with it in perpetuity, right? So and like a lot of MMOs end up being like this, where you just have this insane core, that if you had a friend, like go back to Black Desert Online, if you had a friend that died in a game and you had a funeral service to that person in game, and then the rival clan came to the funeral too, and they also held respects. Like the psychological effects of that, you're in that game for probably the long haul. So that is the kind of the incredible stickiness that can be achieved in these type of things versus very passive experience. You're not community lead, and thus people are fickle and they kind of they come and go on certain things, right? But yeah, I agree. It for Marathon and Bungie. knows this. It's gonna boil down to them activating the community, and kind of having a well polished game. I think that's the thing. Like Bungie's upside is a lot higher than most people think because people know the brand, they know they Destiny, they know they make games that feel good to play. That's probably the best compliment you could give Bungie. Like they know how to make gun shooting feel good in a game and accessible by all types of players. And so if it's that, they'll probably do better than those who are dubious on their outcomes. Let's like talk about another game. I know you had it on the docket. I have to talk about. I want your take because you brought it to my attention. It's honestly neck and neck with Marathon right now in terms of its interest, and that is Pokemon Pokopia. Now, before you jump in, let me describe this game the best I can. And maybe it's Game Freak and Pokemon Company being really on the nose in terms of where we are at. So the plot of this game, if there's a plot, it's a cozy game. So Pokemon's making a cozy game. Like, oh, that sounds nice. And you play as a Ditto. Like, oh, what's a Ditto for those who don't know? It's a shape-shifting cool Pokemon that becomes other Pokemons, and you know it's a Ditto because it's got little tiny little beady eyes that make it like look like a Ditto, right? So that's a Ditto, right? Okay, great. But when does this game take place? Great question. It appears that the world has ended in Pokemon. There is nothing left of humanity left in the entire world except for Pokemon. Ditto, having lost its human, turns itself into what was a resemblance of its human and goes about getting the Pokemon to go join its island again to kind of rebuild the civilization that was once there, including the Pokemon buildings. I'm like watching these videos. I'm like, when does this take place? Where are the people? Where's Jenny? Where like where are all the characters? They're all dead. There's no gyms. It's just Pokemon, post-apocalyptic, post-humans, like just living out their lives, trying to rebuild society in the way they can. You're getting Pokemon to rebuild the Poke Center. Like, what is going on here, Greg? This is a dystopian. This is the most dystopian cozy game I've ever seen. Thoughts?
That is the first I'm hearing on this take, but I love it. And I'm thinking about it. Maybe it takes place after our Avengers Mario movie, where all the Mario, or maybe there's a Thanos Avengers and movie snap, and all of a sudden, who saves the world? The Pokemon come and save the world. And maybe we're setting that up. Um,
It's dark.
it,
Ditto's a dead human. Like,
yeah.
just there's no human.
Let's just agree that this is a genius idea that took so long to come through. I mean, you have Animal Crossing, which was never my jam, but like people just loved Animal Crossing. You had games like, for the old school people, Viva Pinata, which was a weird but oldie but goodie from the Xbox and Rare days that built a kind of taking care of animals. And my kids saw this and they ate it up right away. And it's going to be one of those games where there's no killing, there's no fighting. They're going to have fun. They're going to build a gym. They're going to get Machop or Machamp or whoever it is to come in and punch it out. And like,
Rainbow Champ. Well, that's because all the people are dead, Greg.
oh,
Yeah.
you know what? Sometimes people got to die for the kids to be happy, and that's terrible. No, let's.
This is like the one we go the way of the dinosaurs. What this game is, it's like humanity's gone, and all that's left is nature, and in nature it finds a way. That's the plot of the
Are
game.
you
As
going
I
to get
see
it?
it. I don't know. Well, so Nintendo's coming out 2 cozy games, so almost back to back, and the one that's actually tracking to be bigger than Pokemon. I'll never ever undersell a Pokemon game like that. It has a rabid fandom. Typically when they're not mainline Pokemon, and they're sub-series, they don't do as well as a mainline Pokemon, but when they break through, they break through. The most obvious example is Pokemon Go, where it just becomes a phenomenon of itself. So the upside of Pokemon games that are not Pokemon mainline games is like infinite because they become cultural zeitgeist moments. So like I would say it's tracking to do fine, but like if it's like the next Animal Crossing, would I be shocked? No, because the IP and everything else that's behind Pokemon. But then Nintendo's also coming out with I'm gonna say the name right, Tomodachi, uh, another cozy game set to come out in April this year. Also trending to be a sizable little nice guy, right? It's trending above like other big core games like Pragmata, et cetera, et cetera. So it's set to be kind of the next kind of cozy game and could be like a enjoy of this year, right? So that's something I have my eye on. But Nintendo, trying to win the time war, and maybe they realize that in the attention economy, some people just want to build little farms and villages for their little people and nurture and let them grow, and that's just kind of where maybe a lot of time and attention is going to be spent, at least the first half of this year, for those who own a Nintendo Switch and Switch 2. So Tomodachi Life, living the dream. What a great title for a game. Sounds very opening.
I'm loving the
Very
visuals of it.
yeah. See, look, it's got heat on it, man. It's got heat.
No,
That's all
I
I'll
think
say.
cozy games are good. I think in this world we all need to take a step offline for a little bit and just disconnect from the world. And if you still want to
Yeah,
play a game, a cozy game by yourself, just chill out, relax your brain for a little bit. I think it's a good exercise for everyone to do, to just turn off for a little bit.
even if it takes place in a post-AI future where there's nothing left but animals, maybe that's just the cozy game maybe that is the cozy game of the future. Yeah, I I honestly wouldn't have thought much about this game until you brought it up to me, and I was watching the gameplay. I was like, oh my gosh. But people, I think people like cozy games. There's definitely an audience for that, and I would say broadly speaking, The Sims, by not leaning in more and more on The Sims, has opened the door to more and more competition in the kind of quote unquote cozy genre. So definitely an audience there for it. So I think I'll be curious, those who play Pokopia, like how it is, and if it's as dystopian as the gameplay footage suggests it is. Reach out to me and give me your thoughts. I would love to have that kind of dialogue. But yeah, you're not the first person I came to that take with. I came to my team yesterday, like, this game. That's what I think about it. Like,
Yeah,
that's
it's
big.
you got a dark mind there, Colin. I don't know what happened in Vegas, but
Oh my gosh. Well, speaking of which, did you watch State of Play? Anything catch your eye out of that, man? That's where, I had that on my to-dos. I would say it was a muted State of Play, relative to other State of Plays and Mind Game. So that was going to be something I think I talk about a little bit this week. Just looking at the numbers and whatnot. Nothing really broke through at the level of, say, like Wolverine did last fall when they showed Wolverine stabbing people in the face, and that just shot up like a cannon. But people love Wolverine stabbing people in the face, so that's going to win the internet. But this one a little bit more muted. But I have two thoughts out of it. Two takes, I should say. But do you have any thoughts?
yeah, there's some games that I saw that I think looked really cool that I never saw in my entire life, and I learned they were sequels. One was that Kenna game. I think it was the first one that
Oh
they
my god, that's
announced.
a game.
That just looked beautiful. Like I didn't know, I've never heard of it. It looked like a fun game. Like it's not K-pop Demon Hunters, obviously. It had a little bit of visual styling that kind of reminded me of that when I was watching it. But I didn't realize there was a game before that. But I thought that looked like a beautiful game. There were a bunch of remakes, obviously, which I feel like I need to probably get a PS5 at some point, because it seems like new hardware is not going to come out for years. And I should probably just bite the bullet because there's so many good PlayStation games. So I've never played any of the God of Wars, and I feel like that's a disservice to myself. But the John Wick game, it's not doing anything for me yet. Maybe it will do more for me a little bit when I see more of it. To your point, I think it was good stuff that was announced. I think it's smart. I think, but nothing was like, ooh.
Yeah. Coming out of it, I think my interest, and it's so early, is like God of War, the original trilogy remake, because I have like two conflicting things in my mind on that one. Is what is this game actually going to be like? Because they then did the Shadow Drop, right, or kind of released it like immediately thereafter, the Sons of Sparta remake or whatever. Which was a classic God of War game, which is okay. Are you right? So awesome. So is the remake trilogy going to be just a polished up version of the old God of War games, an HD version, let's say, or are they actually going to remake the original God of War trilogies under the kind of the structure, the kind of the play style of what you get in God of War and God of War Ragnarok? So revisiting those games with like modern gameplay aesthetics and play styles that kind of make them different but still the same story. And that's my question with that game. And they didn't show any gameplay, so who knows? Just that they're doing it. So interest is peaked, but also a million questions going against it. It's like, what is this actually going to be? And I think the tool shows that kind of muted response. Like, it's like, okay, but what are we getting with this God of War game, right? Is it just we just track it as a trilogy in our tool? And I was like, the trilogy, right? But what is it actually going to be versus, and we'll know in probably like a year or two, right? So that's like open question one. As a fan, I hope it's reimagining the God of War games, the retelling the Greek trilogy from a modern aesthetic. That would be so cool. I would definitely play those games. If it's just a straight up HD version of the old God of War games, I am way less interested in playing those. So that's just my personal preference on that one. The other one that was interesting to me, and I'm always confounded on this, is like Castlevania. Can we just get a modern take on Castlevania for the love of God, Konami? Like your anime show is so good on Netflix. Nocturne, the lesser of the two, but like, sure. But the show is so cool. And I feel like the games could be so cool. I just want someone to make a modern Castlevania game. I don't want to play an old school Castlevania, like Metroidvania style Castlevania game. I just want someone to reinvent like to bring Castlevania into the modern gaming era, much like God of War, like set in the Norse gods era, brought God of War into modern gaming. Like beyond sad Kratos with the sun, just the environments in which you are in feel more modern. Why can't I get that Castlevania game? I'm so post anime show. I'm so interested in that, and I'm just like,
You gotta
oh
boot up
man,
boot up the Sega Genesis, get out
yeah.
Castlevania.
Like I'm interested, but please make the game that's interesting for me and where I'm at in my life. Maybe the kids like the throwback games, but seeing like the unsuccesses of like the Prince of Persia throwback games and like to some extent Ninja Gaiden games, like I don't, I think people like those Metroidvania style games when they're actual indies with new things, kind of doing different things, not taking established IP and going there. I mean, I might be wrong. Some people give me actual numbers, but I see this in our tool. It's like they don't do any better than the indie games, and I'm sure they're way more expensive to make. So just bring those IP into new, more modern like platforms of and aesthetics, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my ask. But that was my other thing coming out of there. Is like, man, can we just get like a good Castlevania, like a modern Castlevania, not good, a modern Castlevania game?
Different
Try.
game. I don't know if it was announced or talked about there, but Galactic Racers. Man, that last trailer. Oh my god, how do you not like that, dude? It's like
I'm
Burnout meets Pod
I
Racer meets like
we
yes,
didn't talk about
every
this
way.
before. We didn't talk about this. I'm so up on the Star Wars at the Game Awards. The thing I got most excited was seeing the Pod Racer remake, or whatever they want to call it. I, as an N64 owner, spent so much time hot rodding up my pod, and I love pod racing as a kart racer game, basically, right? It was so much fun. And this game looks gorgeous, and it's like I would definitely play it to just like with my kids to have fun because it just looks cool. Like, oh, this game looks cool, right? So I'm like back on Star Wars, and on top, the Mandalorian trailer, the Super Bowl commercial was awful. I ranted about it on LinkedIn. I was like, this is awful. But man, did they come around with that trailer? I was like, yep, that's awesome. I'm
Yeah,
back
good
in,
shooting.
baby. Let's go. Let's get Mandalorian. He's back in the ship. It wasn't a bad trailer. It was a solid trailer. I noticed characters from the anime show I was really excited about. I was like, all right, let's go. So I'm back in on Star Wars, but I'm in the bag on it. But like pod racing game looks so cool. I'm
Can't
excited
wait.
about that too. But like, you got to think like, I think people have this expectations of these events. And that's like, I think the challenge of these events is they expect everything to always have like a GTA announcement or a new, like something big and kind of blast through the doors. And, when they don't, I feel like the internet gets a little snarky toward it. Like people are snarky toward the third party Nintendo event. I'm like, well, it was the third party Nintendo event. They were not going to talk about Mario at the third party event. They are going to talk about Mario or whatever they do on their own timeline because it's Nintendo. But like, people always get disappointed in these events when they don't have a major drop, right? Which is kind of, some might say what happened to High Guard. They weren't the major drop at the end that people were going to get excited about.
I
So
was glad you said it,
expectations.
not me. You just lots of love on High Guard this week on this week's episode.
I mean, they're
It's
they're out of it. They shut down their website, so I should stop. I mean, I just think like I hope the industry learns the right lessons from them, not the wrong lessons. Like people going after them for taking 10-cent money is stupid, right? Everyone takes 10-cent invests in a lot of gaming companies. And games cost money to make, and you need investment to do it. And if you're any reason you're going to take 10 cents money, in part is because if your game hits, they're going to give you access to the Chinese market. And if you read Matt Ball's report, which we should talk about next week in detail once you read it, Greg, because I want your takes on it. One of them, broadly speaking, is China is the biggest market in demand. China is going to be the biggest market in supply of games. So gaming companies need to figure out China more than they are, basically. And I agree with that broadly. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And so why do you take Tencent's money? Because they give you access to China, because you need to work with Tencent or NetEase. That is the game. So pick your poison between the two, work with them, get in the Chinese market. So you're going to take their investment money. So I don't think that's an issue. People make that an issue. It's silly. Like, oh, this indie studio took investment money from big companies. Like, yeah, that's how investing works. Like, they take money from big companies, not bootstrapping it.
I mean, I think the moral of the story is invest in your community. It will pay itself in dividends. It
Let's
doesn't cost as
bring
much as
it
it does.
back. Invest
Yeah.
in the community that's player driven, and go see Greg in person and chase him down and say hi. Invest in your community by not relegating your or your community team to like the basements of your gaming companies. They're really important, and they're boots on the ground, and they're kind of fostering those people who are going to create the content and be the one percenters like that. They're going to come from the community side. So you lean into them, because I think they're more important than you probably can quantify and realize on a spreadsheet. And yeah, and invest in technologies that allow you to engage with your community more seamlessly. Like, that should be 1-1-1. You want to have a relationship with your community. You want to offer them things that drive them value, whether intrinsic or non-intrinsic. Like, make them feel warm and fuzzy, and they will go to a quote unquote war with you and help you kind of build your brand, build your game, et cetera, et cetera. Be your main advocates on the front lines.
And
So
for
invest in
those on
community.
the other side who want to create content but don't know how to get started, you can look at me or even Colin with his patch notes. Just put something out there. The first one's probably going to suck, to be honest. And you know what? Each one you're going to iterate and you're going to improve. And it takes so much courage just to be able to put something that you created on the internet, right? And you just got to start by doing it. No one's going to tell you now is the right time. No one's going to give you the okay to do it. Do it. Hopefully, you can connect with a few people that give you pointers, tips, and tricks, those people that help advocate for you. Then all of a sudden, you're going to start to see how you can create these things, and you'll find these people who are the sharers and they're sharing your content. It just takes you to leap into the deep end to try and do that. And only you can hold yourself back by doing it.
Absolutely. Couldn't say it better. Greg, I didn't realize you were such a community guy. I would have set you up a little bit more on this one, but I really appreciate your perspective. I should have known that. You set up a community event literally at Dice for like 2 weeks ago. You bought a bunch of White Claws and shoved them in a refrigerator in a hotel room. You put a little banner up, like
No White
all the
Claws. We got
things.
High Noons and we got Surfsides. We're classier than that. And then we drank
Oh,
Angel's Envy. You got a martini. Fancy martini, boy.
oh, dude, I love a good espresso martini. I
I
addicted to
get
them
it,
since my
especially after a
honeymoon.
long day.
Yeah, to give me the
Colin,
caffeine.
let the people know where to find you and your patch notes.
Yeah, so I am Colin East. You can find me on LinkedIn. I write a weekly, mostly newsletter called Patch Notes that you can find on LinkedIn. You can also find it on Substack. I think I've passed almost 50 people on Substack, but a lot of my following is on LinkedIn because that's where I started. But I've been told that Substack's good about emails that get read and stuff like that. So that's why I dual post on Substack. But yeah, you find me those places, and you find me on the Player Driven Discord server. So if you want to like give me crap about writing too many words on an article, then that is the place to do it. So appreciate that.
We all give him crap. So come join all of us. I am Greg. I am from Player Driven. Check us out at playerdriven.io. We're putting out new content all the time. We'd love to hear back from you. We'd love to hear you on the Discord. And we'll catch you again next week.
Yeah, man. Talk to you all later. Bye.
See ya.